So you get a brand new gaming computer, like this new Alienware that I just got. You load it up, you play your favorite game, and guess what? It feels really hot. You're like, well, how hot is this machine getting? Like your fingers feel hot, and you're like, okay, this doesn't seem normal. Maybe it is normal because you're not used to a gaming machine, but maybe it's not. So I'm going to tell you how to test your machine for heat and some steps you can take to cool it down. And also you'll be able to start to tell, like, is there something wrong with my machine, or is this just normal and I just need to take some steps to cool it down? So let's talk about all those issues. So first of all, most of these gaming laptops right now are made to get to around like the max temp is 100 degrees Celsius, but really, we don't want these machines very much above like 92 degrees Celsius because bad things start to happen. So if you're noticing your machine is getting that high, bad things start to happen. So we need to take steps to cool it down. So a desktop computer doesn't always have these issues because they have much better cooling systems. Things are more spread out. But laptops, where everything's packed into that little space, man, they have so many problems, especially these powerful Alienware ones, and other brands that are like everything. They're using the best equipment available. So, they're generating tons and tons of heat. All right, so let's talk about, so first of all, how do you even measure the heat of what's happening on your laptop? So one of the things I always have open is something called HWINFO 64. I'm going to pull it up here right on the screen. You can see HWINFO 64. Now, if I look at this and I scroll down, I see like all kinds of different numbers, and I'm like, wow, there's like lots of stuff going on here. So let me tell you what's really important for you to look at. All right, so the first few things that I look at on this piece of software, which I'll put a link for, are, so first of all, I can see my cores, and I check what my core's voltage is. This is how much electricity is being used by my machine. And these numbers might not really mean anything to you, and that's okay. The thing is, take note of what they are, because we're going to change these a little bit. So I want you to take note of what they are so that you can see when they actually go down, how it affects your machine. So I look at these values here, and then I look at my clock value. So this VID and clock. And I just take note of what the numbers are here. Like really the maximums. Like what are my maximum numbers? I just take note, see what they are. Okay, then I scroll all the way down until I get to my CPU and I look at the temperature of it. And I look at the maximums. Now you can see, depending on how many cores your machine has, this current one that I'm on right now, which is actually my home main machine, only has 4. But that laptop I just showed you has 8, so it has a little more. But you're going to look through and see what are the temperatures, what are the max temps. Now I haven't done anything today. Obviously I'm recording, but my temps are really nice, like 60, 50. That's pretty much my machine being idle, like not really doing anything. If I put a game on right now, it would go up to 75 degrees. But sometimes they do go up to 99, and that's your max temp. So how do you prevent that from happening? So first of all, I keep this program actually running. Why do I keep it running? So that I can, and then I'm going to go play my game and do all my stuff, because this will tell me what my temps are so that I can always see what the maximums are. This helps me as like my base starting point. So I now know like how to actually see what my temperature are. I download this program, very simple, and boom, I've got my temperature. Okay, most of the other stuff here, not important for now. Like, you don't need to look at this. I look at some of this stuff because it's kind of cool to see like different performance metrics. You don't need to look at it. I look at my voltage. I look at the clock of my, like if I'm overclocked or underclocked on my machine. And I look at the temperature. Okay, so we've done that. So what am I going to do to actually lower the temp of my computer now that I know that it's too hot? The first thing, which is like, you just have to, are you on a hard surface? Like if you're on your carpet or like this is on your lap, yes, it's going to get hot because you're blocking airflow. So take it off of there. Next thing, use some kind of laptop pad. Let me show you some examples. I have 2 examples here that I want to pull up for you. All right. First example, this is what I use. I love this. It's simple. It's basic. I'm going to put a link for this in the bottom of this video so that you can get it if you would like to. Check out all that airflow. First of all, notice how it's angled upwards. Heat rises, goes up, So you want your machine, the back where those vents are, to be higher so that air can escape. You want airflow. Notice also, look how clear it is inside here. Just a nice wire mesh frame. I use this in my lab for all our machines because it helps keep them cooler by several degrees. So this is a huge, huge difference from just keeping this like on a desk. So I use this, it's $20, super, this is awesome. It's very cheap, inexpensive, and it works. Now, there are other kinds of cooling pads you're gonna see, like this one, that have fans on them and stuff. The fans do also, in addition to, you know, I just said a couple degrees, they might keep it cooler by a few degrees. I've read lots of reviews and seen lots of tests of these fans. So the first thing I'll say is that I've seen it help it from no degrees cooling, the fan itself, to like as much as 15 degrees. And it doesn't, that's not like based on a more expensive one. You can see this one's $20. It just happens to be random, and where the fans, like where the vents are in your machine and stuff like that, whether these fans are going to work. But here's my thoughts on these fan ones. The problem with the fan ones are the fans break. They're pretty junky. This is a $20 laptop board. These fans are not good. They die on you. How do I know? Because I've tried like 10 of them. And the fans keep breaking after a few months. I swear, like they just can't function well. They're just become more of a pain than what they do. They don't help enough for it to be worth it. So I personally have just ditched all the ones with the fans. I only use these ones now. So much better, and they work. Okay, that's your call. You pick what you want to do. I'm just giving you my advice here. All right, so that's first step one. So what I do whenever I'm trying to cool my machine, if I notice like that laptop I showed you, it was coming up to 99 degrees while I was away on vacation. So I started to play with all the stuff to make sure I was going to lower it. What I do is I test everything. So my first step might be use this cooling pad and see how much is my machine lower. To make sure. I can't say like it's going to cool your machine down 10 degrees because it doesn't work like that. Every situation is different, and you need to figure out what works for you and your machine. Okay, so that's step one, is on a desk using some kind of cooling pad. See what that does to your machine. Test your temps in HWINFO and see what happens. Okay, next step. Now, you're going to go online and you're probably going to do searches, and people are going to recommend, you can see I just pulled something up. They're going to recommend all kinds of different ways to cool down your machine. Some people are going to be like, oh, take your machine out and repaste it, and do all kinds of different things. I like to not do any of that stuff. I use a simple program to help lower the temps of my machine. It works really well. It's called Throttlestop. Throttlestop. I put it up here. I'll put a link for it also below in the video so that you can download it and check it out. Throttlestop. What Throttlestop? Throttlestop does a number of things, but the main reason people use it is to lower your temperature of your machine. Now, there are a few really simple ways. So first of all, you download and install Throttlestop. This program looks like scary at first, like honestly, like you open it up, and unless you're a tech person, knows a lot about computers, you're gonna be like, whoa, but it's really simple to use. I'll show you the simplest things to do, how to lower your temp. All right, so first thing, you open this up and you're gonna see this turn on, turn off. When you click turn, when you see this turn off like I have right now, that means it's on. So normally by default, it's like this. You're going to click the turn on and click save. That means the machine's running. It's up and running. All right. You can also see there are some statistics here. Like here's your current temperature. Here's the max temp. So when I have this up, I don't always need HWINFO because this is telling me my max temps. I like HWINFO for some of the other stuff like that voltage and the clock and stuff like that. All right. So now I can see it's another way to measure my heat, but that's not what we're using this program for. All right, first thing I'm going to tell you. So to use this program, there are two things you are going to do in this piece of software that are going to lower your temperature. One is you're going to do something called undervolt your machine. Undervolt your machine. What does that mean? That means like, so a lot of machines, and some of them now are coming undervolted to help with this problem. But what's happening is like your machine's using a certain amount of volts of electricity, but it doesn't need that many to actually function well. So you do something called undervolt, which you actually lower the voltage required. And what that does is that decreases heat. Now what you're going to find is that undervolting may decrease your heat a lot and you're good. It may not. I find with my Alienware machines, and I have like 10 of them now in my lab, undervolting only lowers my machines by a few degrees. But I do it. So let me show you how to undervolt first of all in this program. And I'm going to create a separate video showing you just how to use this piece of software, but I'll show you in this video as well. So I'm going to click the FIVR button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change two types of voltage, my CPU core and CPU cache. I click unlock adjustable voltage, which you can see is already done. And I'm going to go to this offset voltage and I'm going to change it by going down. Now you're going to see yours is on default. I recommend you go to 80 and see what happens. And if you need to go more, test your temp. And so on this machine, you can see that it goes up to 125 by default. I can change that range, but I definitely really don't want to do that unless I really know what I'm doing. Because what happens? So let's talk about undervolting. So first of all, let me tell you, nothing bad is going to happen when you undervolt. Your machine will be fine. But if you do too much, like let's say I do 125, I might find that my machine like crashes randomly sometimes. So I know that I probably want to increase that back up. So what I recommend is you start with 80, see what happens. And you do that with your core and cache. Keep them the same. Make sure start with each of them at 80 and see what happens. See how your voltage is, see how your heat is lowered and test it out. If your machine's doing well, you might just want to start out with 125 and see what happens. If your machine doesn't crash or do anything unusual, you're good. But don't worry about like messing up your machine. You're not going to like break anything by undervolting. You're fine. So I do the CPU and CPU cache, the core and cache. And now I'm undervolted. I keep this at default at 80 because I find increasing it more does not help me that much with my temperature. You click apply and okay, and boom. You're undervolted. Yay. Okay. Now you can see what your temps are. But what I find is there's one huge feature of these machines, especially on the Alienware ones that I test, that keeps them hot. And it's the turbo option. So what does that mean? The turbo option basically means like when it's basically overclocking. If you've heard of like overclocking your machine, it's essentially what turbo does. So like by default on my machine, and let me pull up the HWINFO piece of software again. So first of all, your voltage is right here. So this is your voltage. When you undervolt, you're going to see this number go down. Now, the next thing you're going to notice is this megahertz right here. How many hertz am I using? Right now, it says my machine, the max is 3295. So with turbo and activated on my machine goes up to around 4.4, so like 4400. With turbo deactivated, it goes to only like about 2000. So you can see turbo overclocks my machine almost doubled. So what I like about Throttlestop is I can disable turbo. If you disable turbo, I guarantee your machine temp will go down by 15 to 20 degrees. The problem with disabling turbo is it can limit some performance, but it doesn't limit performance by a lot. But I prefer just to not do that. So what I do is I have like a middle ground where I know my machine can go to like 4400, but I also know with turbo disabled, it's around like 2000. So what I like to do is I say, can't I make it go to like, I don't know, that 3200 mark? Which if you notice in HWINFO where I'm set 3200. So what I've done is I've actually limited how much turbo can increase. What I found, and you have to play with this with your machine. So you go to FIVR, and right here where turbo ratio limits, you actually go to your core active and you change your cores to a number. Now I have mine all set. Let me put them back here at 33. So you see where your default are and you actually lower them down to what you want it to be. So 33 is like 3300. That's why you saw mine were 3295. So you lower it. You have to find a good balance there. You want it to be as high as it possible with it keeping your machine low. So right now at 33 undervolted and on the cooling pad, my machine, no matter what I'm doing, I can't get it over 75 degrees Celsius. I cannot. And as I said, safe temps are really anything under 90. Like I don't like to keep my machine above 85 ever. So I think that like 80 to 85, you're way safe. If you're playing like a pretty graphic intensive game and it's like 83, you're good. But basically what this is doing is it's undervolting in its own way. Disabling turbo or lowering turbo. You can see here, I can actually just disable turbo by pressing this button. You'll notice when you disable turbo, your voltage also goes down. They're just basically between undervolting and playing with your turbo, you're accomplishing the same goal doing two different methods. But undervolting does not actually mess with the performance of a game, whereas disabling turbo can affect performance. So you need to test that out. You need to find the sweet spot. Like the sweet spot on most of my machines is that like nice in between, having turbo but not letting it go, like cutting it in half. No performance issues, no frame per second drop. I can still be 120 frames per second in games. No problem. In fact, in League of Legends, I'm like 144 frames per second. In Overwatch, I'm over 120 without no performance issues, and I'm marked at that 3300 level. So you need to play with that. But I guarantee this will lower your machine. Now, you might hear like some other things, like maybe I should repaste my machine or something like that. My response to that is, if your machine is so hot that you need to replace it, there's something wrong. Like repaste it, there's something wrong, and I would prefer to let a professional do that unless you really, really know what you're doing. But at that point, if none of this stuff that I've just suggested is keeping my machine low, I'm sending it off to repair because there is something wrong. It shouldn't be going any higher. Doing the stuff I just showed you right now, if your machine is going past up to those in the 90s, there is something wrong. Something wrong. So that's how you kind of know, like, oh, I've done all the normal stuff. Is my machine actually too hot right now? Because if it is, send a repair, boom. If not, hey, you know what? It's actually probably, I just need to do a few things, play with my machine, because, you know, these machines are a lot packed in a tiny little space. So you got to be careful with that. Anyway, that's how you identify if your machine is too hot. And those are some of the common steps you take to keep it lower. Thank you very much. Bye.